I remember when I was in middle school, and I think Two Towers had been out, but not Return of the King.
Ooh,
And we had both of them on DVD.
DVD.
Yep. And I had a friend in middle school, and we went to her house and did a sleepover. And I remember reading Fellowship, like, had the book with me, like this really pretty version, which I need to find those. And also, we did a marathon. So we watched.
Nice.
No, so we
Yeah.
did. So Return of the King did come out because we watched all three of them in it, like extended editions,
Yeah,
which is a day. Like, so
it is. It's literally a full day.
we spent all day doing that. And then I went home, and the next day I did it again. And like, she had called me and she was like, "Are you watching it again?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Because I was such a fucking dork about it. I loved it so much. I can't remember how I got a hold of it, but I got a hold of like the score,
Nice.
like not legitimately. Like I don't know how I got it, but I like downloaded it illegally or something. And I just got obsessed with like listening to the score.
Mm-hmm.
And it got me obsessed with scores in general. But
Yeah,
a really good score.
I didn't really watch the movies when I was younger. I wasn't really into it much, but like I was into the score long before I'd even seen the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yep.
I've always been like a score person. For me, it was Narnia that got me into it. But the Lord of the Rings ones, like the music for me transcends the movies.
Yeah.
So
I forget his name, who did it.
Howard Shore.
Yeah, Howard Shore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like not only Lord of the Rings movies, to be clear, we're talking about the movies.
Yes, sorry, the movies.
The movies.
The books are just as much of a trek as the
Yeah.
actual plot.
Yeah. But I feel like they changed film, like point blank, but
Yeah.
also first of all, fantasy. It was the first movie ever to like win Oscars for a first fantasy film to win an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
But also it like transformed scores,
Yeah.
cinematography, CGI, all of that. Like
the CGI in particular really holds up.
mm-hmm.
I think because they did such a healthy balance of like practical and CGI effects.
Mm-hmm.
But even watching this now, you wouldn't expect it to be like over 20 years old, about 20 years old, depending which movie.
Yeah. So like Milo and I will watch it probably every so often. We probably watch it together about 5 times. And every time we watch it, we're like, it gets a little bit more cringier just because you're just so much more, you're so much more used to like the graphics update. Like, you know, you play video games and you're just like, oh God, Skyrim, what?
Mm-hmm.
But like, that's just how the world is now. But it's like, but it still looks good. And it's still not like, it's not cringy, but it's like when you watch it as many times as we do,
Exactly.
You're like, oh, like, okay, that's definitely like not, you know.
You catch on to things. Semi unrelated, but kind of like related to that. One of my roommates and I were watching Batman over the weekend, the one with like Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. When he's got like Dick Grayson and Batgirl and all them. And there's this shot, and I watched this movie several times at minimum. There's this shot when Dick Grayson is like underwater and he kind of like comes back up, but they only actually shot that part once, and it's supposed to look like he's like struggling in the water. And so they literally like he comes back out and the scene pauses for a second, like the shot pauses, and then it just reverses.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did that get past editing?
Oh yeah, it's like a mistake.
How did somebody watch that and think that'll trick them?
Well, yeah, because
they'll never know.
Because he's coming out of the water, right?
So that's the thing is like there's only one shot and they use it 3 times because he's supposed to be struggling. And so they use it for him to come up and then go back down. And then they use it again when he actually comes out of the water, like 2 minutes later. So it's the same shot.
Yeah. Of just like him falling in the water.
Yeah. Same exact film. And I was just like, how did movies get away with shit like this?
I know.
There's no grace at all.
No.
But then like Lord of the Rings, it is like you watch it so many times and then you're like, oh, that was a little
because you've seen it
by
also
now standards.
Yeah. You also have seen it so many times that you don't need to pay attention to the plot, to the acting. Like, I feel I rewatch a lot of things and I find new things every time I watch them.
Yeah.
And so like when you are watching Lord of the Rings, you're like, oh, but you have to have watched it 100 times. To really notice it,
attention to Viggo Mortensen and you see the nice Rolex watch on one of the orcs,
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. But then also like another example of bad older movies, looking at the effects in like the prequel Star Wars, where they just decided to go like full CGI. That is rough to watch. That did not age well. That aged like fucking milk. It is so.
Are you talking about the Star Wars that came out around the same time?
Yes,
exactly. Those are awful. The one with Jar Jar Binks.
Yes, and like the problem is that like I'm a fan of Star Wars. I enjoy engaging with Star Wars stuff, but I just can't go back to some of those things. Even as much as I love Samuel L. Jackson. I love what's his name, Ewan McGregor. Oof, I love him. But watching those movies is just so hard. I'm like, how did you screw up so hard? Because of this, exactly, like the same time you got Lord of the Rings coming out and kind of nailing it. Yeah. Like not even kind of, just like 100% nailing it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's very rude of Star Wars.
You're very mean.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw this tweet that was like, how is like Disney gonna call it a live action when it's just 100% CGI with all the like remakes of movies now, like the old cartoons? And like I kind of agree. I do enjoy the expanded stories. Like you get a little bit more in depth because they're geared towards people our age who grew up with them and they want a little bit more. But also like, so I never saw Lion King, even though Lion King is one of my favorite Disney movies. But because I'm like, I'm not gonna go watch like just like a 3D cartoon version.
What do you mean you haven't seen Lion King if it's your favorite?
Like the CGI version, the live action. Yeah. It's like there's no humans in it. So literally all of it is just CGI.
And you can't do that with lions.
Yeah, like I saw the original cartoon version. I love that one. I don't need to see the that's not good cartoon version.
It's also creepy.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing like when there's humans in there, it's a little bit more grounding.
Yeah.
Like Beauty and the Beast, I really enjoyed the Beauty and the Beast live action. Maybe I'm just a hardcore Emma Watson stan. That's also true. But it was, I think, easier because you had like this very real person. Like she's the real person in the scenes. You've got like Luke Evans, real person in these scenes interacting with.
Gaston was the best part of that film, though.
That is, yeah, that's Luke Evans.
He was really good.
I honestly think that movie was very, very well cast. Josh Gad as the little like squirrely dude, hilarious. Mm-hmm. One of his best performances from what I've seen. But like having real people in the scenes with the CGI helped it a little bit.
Yeah.
With Lion King, I was like, I'm not interested in just a full CGI movie, unfortunately. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not sorry.
Yeah. So what's your favorite scene in Fellowship?
That's hard.
I know.
My favorite bit. Oh. I'm trying to like go through the movie, so naturally like I'm gonna hit the very first really great scene, in my opinion, is his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously. I love his speech that he gives, because everyone's like kind of like they don't follow along, even though he just kind of insulted half of them.
Yeah.
But the bit where Merry and Pippin accidentally set off that really, really big firework.
Yeah. The dragon.
That's always a cute one.
Yeah. Which, by the way, is a massive, like, first CGI look.
Yeah.
Like, for a first scene, like, there was no stone unturned. Like, they were just like, oh, there's fireworks. Well, we have to show fireworks. Like,
yeah.
Oh, and I loved that part where Gandalf blows the smoke.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Ship. That's cool.
I think the CGI works a little bit better in that party scene because it's nighttime.
Yeah.
So like our eyes are tricked a little bit more easier.
Yeah.
A little bit more easily.
Yep.
I went to college.
Yes.
I don't know if you know that. But any scene with Viggo Mortensen is probably my favorite scene.
Yeah.
I don't think he played Aragorn. I think he is Aragorn.
Yeah.
And
I think Aragorn is otherwise.
Him. Yes, exactly. There's so I think my favorite scenes in the movie is kind of different from like my favorite like plot scenes, but I like the way that they filmed the kind of trick scene where the wraiths like find the hobbits' room at the inn.
Yeah,
in
that's
Bree.
cool.
And like there's that moment, because I do remember the excitement the first time I saw that. I think I do have the benefit of having seen it for the first time more recently. But I remember how like anxious I was in that scene when he's like, when you think they're about to die at the wraith stand, and like, what the fuck just happened? And then you just see them looking from the window.
Yeah.
Across the inn.
I really
and they're all
liked
cuddling
that.
together in bed.
Yeah. I really liked so I love hobbits. They're like my favorite.
Yes.
Like there's definitely a girl who loves elves most, and I'm the hobbit girl. Like I just really love the hobbits. I kind of went on a little bit of a major crush with one of them in the IRL in real life, like Mary.
Nice. Yeah.
What's his name?
Fair.
Dominic Monaghan.
Yes.
And I, low key would just go to the library and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh God, I had back when forums were a thing. I was on a Lord of the Rings forum. I submitted. This is how much I love hobbits. I submitted a. Was it fan fiction? The only fan fiction I've ever written in my life.
I love that.
To
I absolutely love that.
A website called Henneth Anun. It's HENNETH -ANUN. And it was literally just about the hobbits finding mushrooms.
That's fair. I mean, you know they've done it.
Because that's the best. That's the best part of the movie. Is when you're with the hobbits in the beginning. That's my favorite. I like it when they do start traveling. Yeah, and they go to the sleeping giant. Milo brings up what does he say? He says, "Hello, little masters." He's like, meant no offense. Like there is so many quotable moments in this fucking like movie. Like everyone's like, we were literally watching Love on the Spectrum and one of them was like, "Tater's precious." And I'm like, yes. Oh my God, that's our house. Like everyone does that.
So side note, I love Love on the Spectrum and we have to talk about that sometime.
We do, because I actually cried like
same
bad this season.
Was it during Charnay's wedding?
No.
Okay.
I'm not in love with them actually.
Okay,
they're fine. They're fine. They're not my favorite. My favorite was I didn't think I would like the dinosaur guy.
Same. He really grows on you.
Yeah, and then when they were on their date, I kind of lost it a little bit because they were
Yeah.
just so unable to like contain themselves. But anyways, yes, we will get into that.
We will. Okay.
That's a good idea.
Yes. Okay. Where were we? Oh, okay.
Oh,
So
yeah, go ahead.
one thing, because I agree, I think there's a lot of quotable moments, especially just in their like minute interactions. And I think it's because Tolkien, and then by extension, really Jackson, kind of nails the way that like we as viewers need those relatable, just tiny human moments to connect to the fantasy.
Yeah. Yes.
Because it needs to like attach to something.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree because that's what the score did as well.
Yeah.
The score, it was emotional. It needed to be emotional because how else are you supposed to care about Frodo? Like we literally don't have any backstory on him. There's not a lot of character development really with Frodo until he gets the ring. So it's like, so then you kind of, you're on this journey with them. And so you have to kind of find some semblance of emotion within it. And that's when it like starts, like that moment when he sees Bilbo in Rivendell.
Yeah.
That part terrifies me every time. And this is when the CGI really came through, was when
it's also
Bilbo's face changes.
It's quick enough that like it scares us, but then we don't have to like pay attention to it not being real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why it's also scary because it happens so fast that you don't have a chance to convince yourself that it looks like bad CGI.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I really liked his relationship with Bilbo is kind of like the cornerstone of his like growth, right? Like he sees what he will become if he doesn't destroy the ring. But those moments I think really ground it, and then the score really helps like bring the emotion out because you do need I agree. Like you do need emotion when you're talking about fantasy.
And it's funny because the score really has this way of drawing the like normal emotions to this, I guess, like this crescendo where he's just like the excitement of seeing his friends again. And the score just really amplifies that in this amazing way. Like I cannot watch those movies without crying because the music just overwhelms you with emotion. Any emotion, it could be a good one, it could be a bad one. Any emotion that I'm feeling during like a particularly good part of the score will make me cry.
Yeah.
Because it's just so well done at amplifying those feelings.
Yeah.
Like not to jump ahead too much, but very, very end, there's the scene, one of the 7 endings that Jackson gave the movies, the scene when they're in the pub and the score is kind of softer and you get that sense of what now,
like reverence almost.
Yeah, like there's this kind of like discontent almost because they've come back and nothing's changed. It's almost like no one knew what was happening, which does kind of go back to Tolkien and his writing this around his experiences in war. Like that's a very real thing for veterans to come back to, is like nobody knows actually what you went through, and so everything is completely the same but you. And I have like that's it. It's like everything's the same but them, and they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, they don't really know how to fit.
Yeah.
And I love, this isn't the books, but I love in the or this isn't the movie, but I love in the books how like Sam just becomes mayor. Like that's his way of like being different in Hobbiton.
He gets confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I can't watch those movies without crying. It's just too much sometimes. A good battle scene will always put me under.
I think too, like, it's the Fellowship of the Ring's fault that I only like beginnings of things, because I just want to watch the beginning part like over and over.
Yeah.
Like until maybe like the Council of Elrond. That's when things start to get too serious for me.
That's
I mean,
fair. That's
I
when
don't
things got
hate
serious
it.
generally.
Yeah, I don't hate it, the rest of it at all. But I'm like, oh, like I read that part of the book a couple times, like more than the rest. Like,
I would like to be a hobbit in Rivendell.
oh yeah, Rivendell's
Yeah.
pretty, but it has kind of a sense of at least visually in the films, it kind of felt a little claustrophobic to me, even though there was no walls, because it's like in a valley divot
Yeah.
almost, like when you can I can see it in my mind's eye, like them like climbing the cliff, like down the cliff's edge to
Yeah.
Rivendell, which is like just kind of this like
I would never
massive, like,
leave if I went there, so I'd never have to come back and go through that walk again because I don't like heights. But like just the comfort, like I think it's also the sense that Frodo and Bilbo give off when they're there of this kind of liminal space where they're void of all their responsibilities.
Yes. Like that's where you go to like retire.
Yeah,
to
like
summer.
they're rightfully void of all those responsibilities because they kind of get shit like from some of the higher beings for just being careless little halflings. But at least when they're careless little halflings in Rivendell, like they're not like lazy. They're just resting.
Yes.
So
I have a soft spot for Glorfindel. No, that's
who's
his
on
name.
the books, right?
What's the Wood Elves? What's their place called? I always forget.
I don't remember.
Okay, Google.
We're hitting the Google.
It doesn't it's not. What is going on? Whoa, everything's. I updated my phone today and everything's changed.
While you're doing that, I will say of Merry and Pippin, I love them both, but I'm actually partial to Pippin.
Yes.
Because he's
everyone
just
is.
Yes, he's so innocent.
Yeah.
Like it's all
Fool of a toque.
Yes, he has the best intentions, I think, which I really like. He does actually come through on a few occasions, and it's not because he's got like some kind of grandiose vision for who he is as a person, but just because like he is good.
Yes. Yeah. I always liked Mary because everyone liked Pimp. Like I was one of those contrarians. I kind of felt like Mary didn't get as good of a. I mean, I think in the books he goes to war.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, they all kind of do their thing.
I should say, I like Merry and Pippin more than I like Frodo and Sam. But if I had to like rate all four of them, it would go Sam, Merry, Pippin, Frodo.
You hate Frodo.
I don't hate Frodo.
I know.
But I think you are right in that like Frodo doesn't really experience character growth. He's one of those rare cases where you do see like his arc is degenerative, unfortunately, just by the nature of like what his function is within the fellowship. I think not that this is any nuanced opinion at all, but the fellowship would have failed without Sam, without a doubt.
Oh, absolutely. No.
Yeah.
We have had this discussion as well.
Yeah.
There is no ring in Mordor without Sam.
Yeah.
Sam literally carried Frodo.
Yes.
Like
at the end, literally carried him up the mountain. But pretty much from the moment Frodo stepped out of the Shire, the moment that Frodo was like, come on, Sam. And he's like, this is the farthest I've ever gone. That entire time, Sam was carrying him.
Yeah. This is the furthest away from home I've ever been.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's Lothlorien.
Yes.
Lorien.
Yes. Now that like you've said it, I know.
And I think the Wood Elves are known as the Galadrim. I, to be honest, loved this part of the book as well. Because it was I think it's the fantastical element, the mysterious element that you want in a fantasy, which is literally people living in trees.
Yeah.
Like I had Fern Gully all up in my head, like just like minus the wings, like
Yeah.
like I just loved, and it was cool because it was at night, and it just made me wonder what it would be like in the daytime, just to be like all like up in the trees and just like the glow coming through.
I think Lothlorien nailed what Rivendell wasn't able to do by being that mysterious, because like Rivendell had to be a sanctuary.
Yes.
But by the time we hit Lothlorien, it needs to be, we're entering dangerous territory. This is after like the Council of Elrond. This is when things are actually starting to take a darker turn for us as the viewers. And so we needed this space that was, it's liminal in like a darker way.
Yes. I just had this thought where, because we all kind of know, like, yes, Galadriel is like all-knowing goddess of everything.
Yeah.
But
and that's just Cate Blanchett. So
yes, I know. But there's something about Elrond that's like different, right? Like, yes, maybe he's not as old, but he's still old, but which I feel like is more grounding.
Yeah.
And he's more on Earth. He fought with like Isildur and like whereas Galadriel's just up in her tree, like, you know what I mean?
He's
I feel like
human.
there's definitely something going on there where you have like Rivendell, who's like, it's just a little bit more like interested in the humans, a sanctuary for humans and hobbits, whereas Galadriel and like Glorfindel or whatever, there's that other blonde guy.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like they're a little bit more distant.
You can feel the isolation.
Yes.
In Lothlorien. Rivendell, you can tell that, like, even though Elrond has a very high opinion of himself, and rightfully so, he's interacted with humans a lot more. And if you know any of the lore, you know that, like, he also is one side of a line of, like, human elf royalty, which is where Aragorn comes from. So, like,
yeah,
it's very entrenched in Rivendell.
Like, Galadriel didn't come to the meeting.
Yeah, she didn't need to.
Like she sent Legolas, which Did you like Legolas? Did you like Orlando Bloom?
I don't know that I like him in, I guess, what could only be considered an ironic sense. I enjoy him. I think he's very meme-ish.
He's memey.
Yes. I don't think his performance was bad or anything. I just think for some reason there were scenes definitely where like he stuck out.
In a good way or a bad way?
I guess in a neutral way. Definitely not in a bad way. Maybe it was the fact that the makeup crew continually forgot to put in his blue eye contacts. And so sometimes it was just like very obvious that I was looking at Orlando Bloom.
Yeah.
But I'd never really like put that together that Galadriel sent him.
Yeah, because you got
like
Boromir.
The other elves sent him.
Well, so like the whole thing that you learn from the elves is that, well, like they're moving on.
Yeah.
Right. So like, why do we need to invest ourselves in human like problems? And so, then they sent Elrond sent for a council, and that's who she sent. Because there is the guy on
fuck you.
Yeah, because then there is the guy on her right, like Galadriel. What?
I think that's her husband.
I can't remember his name, and I keep saying it wrong. But like, and then there's the guy who shows up, at Helm's Deep, like that guy. There's all these like powerful people, and we don't know where. Yeah, and then the guy who, the general that shows up in Helm's Deep with his
so tragic, but yeah.
So like there's people, but it's like we don't know where Legolas came from or what his story is, or like whereas I guess like I wasn't really listening to Legolas, so maybe Maybe he tells us. But, you know, like you get a good sense of where Gimli came from because you do go to like the
Mines of Moria.
mines. Yes. They call it a mine. Sorry, I'm going to do it the whole time.
That's
but
I
I
feel
feel
like
like you go...
favorite scenes, though, actually, just real quick, is them trying to get into the mines and Gandalf being all like,
I can't remember.
Speak friend. And it's Frodo who's like, how do you say friend in Old Elvish? And just like, click, he got it.
Yeah. I think it was Mary that said that.
No, it's Frodo.
Oh.
Yeah, because Frodo knows Elvish.
Right.
We don't learn that in the movies, but like...
He does from Bilbo.
They have to throw in a few times that like Frodo's smarter than he looks.
Yeah. Which
is not an affront to Elijah Wood. I promise. So kind of going back to Legolas, he has so much depth in the books. And I think maybe that's that's the reason I haven't really noticed. Not to brag, but I read the books first. That's because I did it for a class and I had to. So,
yes.
But in the movies, his function tends to be just like actively supporting Aragorn and showing Elvish support for Aragorn up until like you get the general that comes and helps them in Helm's Deep. And up until Aragorn and like the third one has really established himself as the return of the king. But he's like one of the first lines you get out of him is that he stands up and tells Boromir to fuck off because he's talking to the rightful king. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes time for like once the fellowship breaks up, it seems like Legolas follows Aragorn and then Gimli is just like, well, I'm not going to let some elf show me up. So yeah, I'm going to follow Aragorn too. Because obviously Legolas and Gimli are enemies to lovers. I stand by that. I support that. But it is a very good point though. I hadn't really noticed is like in the movies, you don't get that depth of like, who is this guy that was just kind of sent in her stead?
So it's just, he's the heartthrob, okay?
Yeah.
Of the movie. He doesn't need one. He doesn't need a backstory, unfortunately. And that's part of the reason why I didn't buy it. Like, I obviously love hobbits, but like, you got to see where they came from, and I wanted to be there. So I loved the hobbits. Even Aragorn was cool, like, and sexy. Like,
so here's the thing, though.
Legolas was just a blonde towhead that just like did flips and stuff. Like, I don't know what.
I can't even respond to that. That was like definitely like I've been watching these for 20 years and it still bothers me kind of like response. But okay, so the thing is Aragorn was the heartthrob for our mom's generation. Whether or not he's just for them now it remains to be seen, considering we've both talked about how sexy Aragorn is. But like Viggo Mortensen is very much more like our mom's generation kind of heartthrob. And so then you have Legolas, who narratively his function is to show active support for Aragorn. Narratively, I should say in the movies, showing active support for Aragorn.
Yes. And they needed an elf. Yeah.
Then you've got like a little, like the younger generation's heartthrob. So like the older one and the younger one, they're like partnered essentially is what you've got. So. Yeah.
I, unfortunately, now that we watch these movies, like more like later and later, the love, like the romance between Aragorn and Arwen is very like, you know, like it just
I love it.
Really? Because I like you get to that scene and you're just kind of like, I don't know. It's just lackluster because you don't really know Arwen. Like you don't like. There's so much, knowledge dump just to get their romance to make sense. That the actual romance doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, it's just very like, I just wasn't a big fan of it because I mean, I just feel like they spent a little too much time on it.
I think it makes sense because there's a lot in these books. There's whole plot lines that get like omitted in these movies because Tolkien just really,
Yeah.
he wrote some honkers there.
I mean, I actually remember being interested in it when I was younger.
Yeah.
I think as like a film, it was like kind of, but like I read the Silmarillion and I got really into like their relationship and stuff. And so I really like their relationship in the books. And I liked like the Silmarillion.
But that's what I'm saying though, is like, these are 2.5-hour movies if you don't watch, like, depending on which version you're reading. And so there's just shit that has to get left out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And they're
so I guess as
they're coming from the point of like, we're trying to gear these movies towards more than just people who have read every single thing that Tolkien has written, and are trying to make it like appealable to like a full audience. And I think like his relationship with Arwen is essentially what leads Elrond to showing more active support later on, which is why I really love that dynamic, because like at first it's like, oh, it's just childhood love, and you don't know that he's actually like 80 something and she's how many centuries years old. But because Elrond is also kind of active against it, it's a little bit more enticing. Like, I'm trying not to leave the first movie too much, but I feel like it's the payoff with their relationship that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can tell that Elrond is this kind of father figure, patriarchal figure for Aragorn. And so at the very end, when he's come to like see his coronation, and then also here's my daughter who you've loved forever, like it feels like
his
win.
His face is all like trembling.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can feel the emotion in that point. Oh, sorry. You can, they didn't just defeat the Dark Lord. He got the girl.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like their relationship. I'm not saying I don't like their relationship. I'm just saying like it was a lot in the first movie.
Yeah.
I wanted to get to know Arwen more, and you don't really see that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that she came in, I don't think that was in the books.
No, that's
stops the river. Because
I think that is actually Glorfindel.
Yeah, Glorfindel. Probably another Rivendell elf, but is, yeah. Like, but I know they like tried to put her in more to kind of like warm that up. But yeah.
I definitely like her more in the movies because she's just kind of like, we're introduced to her as this kind of warrior, and then she just chills. So it's
just wears long gowns and like
I'm like, you get this sense that
lays
like,
down on the fainting couch.
A lady of leisure. She's like badass. She's just choosing not to do anything right now.
Yeah.
So I like that.
The third scene. So when I say scene, the first one was just hobbits, and then
yeah,
and then the second one was like Lorien, and then the third one was just when they're in the boats going down the river, and they pass the
kings.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then so this is when the score just really makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. And then and just being in the big, watching that in the big screen is not a fucking joke. something like that. Like
Yeah.
you weren't looking at that like in 2000 or whenever it came out. It's like, and then you just see like the bird come out of his eye, like, and you're just like gliding past it, and you just like this bit. Oh, every
The
time I'm
camera
like,
work in that shot, excellent. Absolutely excellent.
every time it comes up, I'm like, Milo, stop! Like we have to watch. Like
Everyone
this
quiet. Everyone
part's
shut
so
up.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that part. And then just when Boromir sacrifices himself, like such a good scene. And then the song, the score part when
Yes.
Sam goes into the boat. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes. When he tries to swim.
Yes. Oh my god.
That is one of those shots. Okay, so as much as we're talking about like the CGI and like the effects actually being pretty good, anytime they're underwater, it's shit.
Yeah.
Because like the proportions,
because no one opens their eyes underwater.
Well, yeah, and then like the
that's in every movie
of Frodo's hand to Sam, and then like when you pan out, like it kind of like it glitches my brain for a second, and my brain's like trying to make it fit.
Right.
If that makes sense, like it's slightly off. But and then it happens again. Is it the third one when they run into that like swamp graveyard?
Oh, that's
elves and men.
That's the second one. That's the.
Is that the second one?
Yep. That's
I can never remember because I just know Gollum's there. It's funny because, I mean, slight sidebar is the storyline that follows Frodo and Sam between 2 and 3 completely indiscernible. I can't, unless it's got Shelob, I don't know where it is in like in the timeline. It's all a blur.
It's, no, yeah, books too. Like you're not really
foliage around, and Gollum's there, and Frodo and Sam are still eating elvish bread.
No, yeah, it's like you know when like I don't know, like I kind of imagine, like you kind of have to like I imagine when like Pippin gets like the ball thing.
Yeah.
Like that's when they're like going into Mordor, you know what I mean? Like, but it happens in like completely different times of the, like, I think there was a point in the books too, I think, where I was like I had just finished Two Towers and it was like, I was like, that's not in the Two Towers, you know, because it's just the timeline's off. But like for the movie, they kind of had to, which I get. But yeah, it's like there's just no way of knowing. there's no North Star. Like,
yeah. So like I said, I had read this, or I'd done this all for a class. It was like a Tolkien class. I stand by it. It was an amazing class. But one of the things that they had offered was like as a reference sheet was like the timeline, like a full thing, which was so nice when reading the books. And then I was like watching the movies and I was like, they're over here, but like they're kind of like down here, and I don't know why this is the way it is. But that's why sometimes I don't know with Sam and Frodo. How did we get to there? Okay, so we were the swimming, the water. Oh, Boromir's sacrifice. Okay, so I made my mom watch all 3 movies, extended editions. Whenever I went to visit them last, which I want to say was like in May. And poor thing doesn't watch, I shouldn't say that, but my mom, but like, bless her heart, she doesn't watch a lot of fantasy. Yeah. So she did not know that Sean Bean always dies. Anything he's in. And so this scene is coming up and I'm sitting there and I'm like, she's got to know. Bawling. To my mom, was just absolutely bawling her eyes out. It's a very noble sacrifice. So I'm even on like a bad day, I will tear up. So I get it. But like part of me felt bad for not warning her, like just how tragic of a scene it was about to be. Because the whole movie, even though we've talked about like at Lothlorien, it gets a little bit darker, but like at that point, the dark is more mysterious. We don't quite fathom yet this, like the gravity of the threat. But this, like you lose the first member of the Fellowship. For real, I guess. I knew going in that Gandalf wasn't going to die because with the internet, I knew like Gandalf the White was a thing, and I was like, it's got to be a sacrifice. but like Boromir's like dying words, at least in the movie, I can't remember in the books, are just how sorry he is that he scared Frodo and that he let the ring get the best of him. And that's so sad.
Yeah.
As I like, it's, he went down protecting the hobbits that he could, but he didn't feel like it was enough. He still had to get that out.
Yeah.
And then he calls Aragorn king. Like you can like
Yeah.
all of the pride leaves
That's
his
in the
body.
book. I remember
Yeah.
that. He
Same.
addresses Aragorn. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the best but saddest. So like the other scenes were like, oh, it's so good. I love it. It's so funny. This one's like, it was tragic. It broke my heart. I loved every second of it. Like
Yeah. 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 I mean,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah. I was trying to think if there's anything we're missing, like, but I can edit this too. Take
fair.
the love on the spectrum off.
That's fine.
Because I
just
like
leave
it.
in.
Yeah, we could leave it in.
Yeah.
But that's a hour almost, so I feel like that's good.
Is it really?
Yeah, we could do like last thoughts or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Holy shit.
I don't mind editing this.
Yeah.
Just this little.
Because we could probably turn this into 2.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, favorite characters, but like top 3 or something, maybe.
yeah. Do you want to do just from the Fellowship?
Yes.
Okay.
Like like with just Fellowship in mind.
Oh, just the movie. Okay, yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like we'll
Yeah.
just kind of try and keep it because there's definitely things I haven't mentioned because it's not Fellowship. So
Yes.
we need something to talk about. But okay.
Okay, so then who are your top 3 characters from the first movie?
So I remember when we had all, as a family, gone and seen this in theaters when it came out. And afterwards, we were like all around the table. And my dad was like, we played this game where he guessed who our favorite characters would be. And God damn it, Dad, because like I had chosen in my head Arwen, but he said Frodo. And I was like, you're right. Like I think I want to like love Arwen the best, but I liked Frodo the best at the time. Things have changed, but
I think movie 1 Frodo is very different than other. So
I do.
Yes.
And I think I still stand by it because I feel like he is, not to get all like sappy, but he symbolizes Hobbit. He just has hopes, like so much hope and just like joy. And do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, this like
merriment,
laughter. Like when I think about movie 1 Frodo, I don't think about him getting stabbed or like
a light fading from his eyes. Like,
exactly, like putting on the ring and seeing the wraiths. Like I think about the shots where he's laughing with Bilbo or with Sam. Those are the things that really like
or when he's like on the
really
carriage
Frodo.
with Gandalf, like
Yes, and he's
that's like a money shot. Like that's like the first, yeah, keep your secrets. Yeah, and just I think that's where his if there is any character development, that's where it happens because he's just this innocent hobbit, and then all of a sudden has right in the Council of Elrond when he decides to take the ring. That's his arc. After that, he just disintegrates essentially.
Yeah,
like it's just the same struggle every like
this,
scene
like,
with him.
Question of fate with the ring too that I really enjoy. Like there's kind of the unsaid thing of like how conscious is the ring, because the ring had spent how long in Gollum's grasp, and then Bilbo wanders in and it just falls out of his pocket.
Yeah, it bounces away.
Yeah. And then
well, I think it's always trying to get back to its master, right?
Like, that's what I mean. Yeah. Like how much like there is really this like the odds of, I guess not the odds of, but like rather the planning that would have to go through, like the knowledge that it would have to know, like, it's time to leave Bilbo and go to Frodo.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely felt like a magnetism because honestly, it worked. You good?
Yeah.
I was
It felt like it was going to be loud and then nothing happened.
I was giving you space there.
Thank you.
I feel like it worked though. He got closer in that the ring did get closer.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Is
think,
like,
yeah. So yeah, this like thread of fate and like whose will like alter that.
One,
Like,
I'm gonna make this brief because I do want to hear about your other favorites. There's the look that Gandalf has. They kind of like close in on his face when Frodo's the one that says, "I'll take the ring," because he doesn't want him to have to do it, but also he knows he has to. The ring found its way to Frodo, so it'd almost be more trouble to take it from him.
Yeah.
You know? He has to give it up willingly at this point. They're in too deep. But also, when Boromir tries to steal the ring, that's the event that instigates Frodo running off on his own.
Right.
To get to Mordor.
Right.
So it's almost as though the ring was antagonizing Boromir, knowing that he would be the one to make a move that would lead to Frodo.
Yeah, he was the weakest of the Fellowship.
Exactly. So it wasn't necessarily with intent to like go with Boromir, but rather so Boromir would be the catalyst that would lead Frodo to leaving the Fellowship. Like the Fellowship was just kind of like a, what is it? What do they call? Like when magicians like move their hand over here so you can't see the actual trick.
A decoy.
Yeah, so like the Fellowship itself was never intended to go past that point.
Yeah.
Because Frodo had to leave because he had to trick the ring into thinking that it was going to Sauron because they had to get to Mordor to even destroy it.
Yeah, and then even in like the Return of the King, when it gets, he is closer, and at any point, an orc could just, like they're literally in the ranks at one point, and he's got the ring around his neck, like. But yes, very interesting, and I'm sure this will come up again as we talk about more of the movies.
100%, yeah.
I would say I really like Gandalf. And I really like Aragorn, obviously. But I think Gandalf a little bit more because Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
I just love him. He's like, I think I wouldn't have watched the movies if there was no Gandalf. So that's probably, he probably is my favorite character, actually. He reminds me the most of like Tolkien or like what I would imagine Tolkien was writing was like kind of this, I don't know, the father.
Yeah. He's a very stable figure, like emotionally stable for us.
But also whimsical, like when he can't like remember the password or he's just like,
because he's got so much knowledge that his brain is
or
just
which
like,
way to go in the exactly, he's just like sitting there and then he says his line, you know. All we can do is, you know.
Yeah. So do all who come to live through such times. Okay, so I don't know if I can rank them specifically because like they change so frequently. Aragorn for sure. I love Aragorn, absolutely love him. And then trying to think specifically about movie one. I'm going to say Merry and Pippin is one. Because in book one, they're still pretty much tied to the hip.
Yeah.
So. And then I think Elrond.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. But I'm gonna give an honorable mention to the Hobbit who just stands gardening and like scowls anytime anyone walks by.
Yes.
I love him. I love that we keep like throwing back to him occasionally, and he's just like,
Yeah. Yeah,
he's
no, he's good.
he's the best.
Yeah,
So
cool.
I think because I kind of mentioned ones that you had mentioned, but the reason Elrond in book one, movie one, Fellowship, is because them getting to Rivendell was like the setting of the plot.
Yeah.
Before then, it was I got this ring and I just got to kind of take it here and then we're done. We can go home. But Elrond sets that all in motion. And also, he never really doubts the hobbits, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
Yeah,
like, Boromir
he holds them in high esteem.
Yes, exactly.
And they pay such respect to Bilbo as well.
Exactly. And I really love that because you get shit talk from, like, Sauron. And Boromir kind of, like, he doesn't really shit talk so much as, like, you can see him not really, like, taking it seriously.
He's just ignorant. Like, he doesn't know.
Exactly.
They don't see them,
Yeah. But Elrond really holds them in high regard. And I love that. I love that for him.
Yeah. Elrond's a cool guy. I kind of like him more now, like talking about it a bit more, because didn't realize how much a facilitator. Okay.
Yeah.
A facilitator he is for like the plot and like
he's kind of
the species of Earth. Like
he's almost unwilling at times because as much as he knows that Aragorn's meant to fulfill this fate and he knows he's meant for great things, it kind of takes instigating from Arwen. Like she's like, we need to reforge this sword. And Elrond is like,
it's not the first time he fought for the men, you know? So he's been fighting a long battle with
he's kind of like disenchanted, I think, at this point. And so I think
when that gets reignited, is exciting.
Yes. Agreed. You can almost see like the fire relight during the council.
Yeah. He gets excited when everyone stands. It's Elrond Stan.
Yes. This is an Elrond Stan account.
Yep.
We will not be tolerating the hate in here. Yeah. Take that elsewhere. Yeah.
I also love that Merry and Pippin were like hiding and they just run up.
And you can't tell me that Elrond didn't know like elves have super like superhuman, not human, but like
but hobbits are also very hard to spot. So
true. But like I imagine like hearing, like you had to have heard because they can't go anywhere without bickering with each other.
That's true. Anyway, that's Fellowship.
Yeah, that is Fellowship.
Oh, it's a good movie.
It is.